Today's video is proudly sponsored by Skillshare. Are you bored of being stuck at home all the time? Are you looking for a new hobby? Skillshare offers a wide variety of creative outlets for you to enhance your own abilities and learn new things. All the way from illustration, graphic design, web design, marketing, anything that you can do from home, they have courses for. For example, I'm looking forward to learning from Maddie Brown how on a low budget I can enhance the quality of my YouTube channel in filmmaking. One of the nicest parts about Skillshare is you get direct access to the teachers, to the creators. So this way, if you have any questions, you don't understand anything, you can reach out directly. Them and the community will get behind and help you understand the topics. Now, as this is an all-encompassing learning course, you figure it'd be expensive. It's not. Coming in at less than $10 per month with an annual subscription, anybody out there can afford to learn any of these great skills, or all of them. You're not limited to just one. And even better, Skillshare is offering the first 1,000 people to use the link in the description or pinned comment below a free premium Skillshare membership. So there's never been a better time to sign up, learn some new skills, boost that resume, find some new hobbies, and enjoy life in this crazy world that we live in. Alrighty guys, now back to the video. Hello everyone and welcome to The Good Old Gamer, the channel where we cut through the marketing BS, take a look at new and old gaming technologies to figure out what makes the most sense for you. So alrighty guys, one more day of BS talk, and this is because the whole issue with Hardware Unboxed and Nvidia has finally been resolved-ish. So that's what we're going to be talking about here today. Steve came out with his video earlier today, and he did a really good job. He summed up a lot of stuff in there. But there are a few things that I want to kind of go over that maybe he touched on, but he didn't really go into, and really explain why this is such a big deal for the tech enthusiast community. Before we get into that, if you like these kind of videos, please smash that like button. That tells YouTube that you like this kind of content. And like I said in the last video, this helps us, as the community, get this information out there. We get to use YouTube to propel this information so Nvidia does not pull shenanigans like this again. Smashing that like button, subscribing, and commenting in the comment section is the best way to show your support. And I thank you all for your support. The reason why this is such a big deal isn't so much that Hardware Unboxed may not be getting review samples. That's not the big deal. The big deal here was Nvidia wanted to push their agenda upon what are supposed to be independent reviewers. Now, when we say independent, there's been a lot of discussion about this because a lot of people are like, well, you can't be objective and independent if somebody's giving you something and helping you with your livelihood and things like that. And to some degree, I suppose that's true. You don't want to bite the hand that feeds, I suppose. But most reviewers, the good ones out there, especially like Hardware Unboxed, they will go ahead, take that information, and if they have some bad data or something isn't working right, they will typically give the benefit of the doubt for a little while to the company. Maybe there's just something wrong with their product. This is something that I mentioned a few videos ago when I was talking about Jay's 2 cents 6900 XT review. Sounded like he was having some trouble with his card, but it didn't sound like he tried to reach out to AMD. Most reviewers would do that before posting their review, or at the very least leave a caveat in there. So yes, most reviewers will give the companies the benefit of the doubt for a while. But more objective reviewers will go ahead and give you the base information as it stands, throw on the caveat, and then do a follow-up later on. And realistically, this is about as much as anybody can really expect from a review site, company, YouTube channel, whatever, from anybody out there. Now, realistically, when it comes to bias, because a lot of people are out there like, well, this person's biased, everybody's biased. You're biased, I'm biased, everybody's biased. Now, Hardware Unboxed, their bias, after talking to some of you guys in the comment sections, their bias typically goes towards price to performance. That's basically what Steve's main focus is. He wants you, as the user, to get the absolute maximum performance or value out of your dollars or whatever currency that you're using. And that's the lens that Steve looks at things. So things like the 6900 XT and the RTX 3090, Steve's never going to recommend those to anybody ever, unless they happen to be like 50 or 100% faster and they cost 50 or 100% more, in which case then he would, because dollar for performance would be pretty good. So things like ray tracing, which is what Nvidia wanted Hardware Unboxed to really start focusing on and harping on in their reviews, that doesn't make sense to Steve because it kills your performance. In the podcast that'll be coming out tomorrow, the Techonomics podcast, Paul and I do talk about this. And in there, we recorded that the same day that Steve and Tim put out their Cyberpunk numbers with ray tracing and DLSS on there. And even the RTX 3090 can only run ultra settings with, I think it was ultra ray tracing and DLSS. The 3090 was only getting 39 FPS at 4K. A $1,500 graphics card here today in 2020, only getting 40 FPS is wholly unacceptable, especially when you consider the fact that something like DLSS is being used to get that. DLSS is supposed to be the feature to make that happen. So the fact that even today's fastest graphics cards aren't anywhere near fast enough to run this feature, that's the main reason why Steve doesn't talk all that much about it. It hasn't matured yet, and AMD just put their toes in the water about a month ago with the whole ray tracing thing. So realistically, we're at the very beginning of the ray tracing era, I guess you could say. Considering where the ray tracing performance lands on RDNA 2 and that those are in the new consoles, personally, I don't think ray tracing is going to be that big this entire GPU generation or this entire console generation. More likely, we will have to wait until next generation consoles when the technology matures. Us on PC, we are going to be the beta testers. They will test it out on us to make sure that they can optimize performance and stuff. So about 7 years from now, the next gen consoles will probably be up to snuff for reasonable ray tracing. Nowadays, they're going to shoehorn a few ray trace features in just to say that they have ray tracing and tick that box. But it doesn't seem like this generation it's going to matter that much. A few key titles on PC will have that. Like I said, we are the guinea pigs for console, and that's about where it stands in my opinion. Now, Steve, I know, has a rather similar opinion there, that until the ray tracing visuals are so transformative that he would recommend running it with ray tracing on instead of off because the game looks that much better, maybe crosses the uncanny valley. Until we get there and the performance is good enough, he's just not going to recommend it, nor will I, nor will most people out there. Nvidia does not like that because that is the key selling feature of their cards. That, the DLSS, and all of their AI suite, which you guys know that I am very impressed with what they offer. Now, the thing is if people want those features or need those features, like RTX Voice or that broadcast studio thing, if you need that, you're probably already well aware of this. But when it comes to gaming, that doesn't really matter. If all you want to do is game on your graphics card, who cares that you can do all that stuff because you're not going to take advantage of that. Same thing with like the DLSS. This is another kind of contentious thing. I very much like DLSS because it shows me the future, like where we're heading. Basically where mid-range or even entry-level graphics cards will be able to run 4K gaming without ray tracing, of course, because you need that performance bump on those lower-end cards. And I'm actually going to be doing a video on that using the slowest and cheapest RTX card, the RTX 2060 here soon, and show you guys that, yeah, you can actually use this cheapo card and game at 4K. And I'll be using my LG OLED to test that. And for those of you guys that don't want to invest tons of money to game at 4K, realistically, this is the only way that I see mainstream cards ever really being able to hit the 4K resolution. So yeah, I like DLSS. So does Steve. So does Tim. They've done good work over there. I've actually recommend Tim's breakdown video of DLSS 2 all the time. But Nvidia, to them, this just all wasn't good enough. See, I just outlined my perspective on things. I outlined what Steve and I have kind of talked about and kind of where he stands on a few things. And they just want the sycophants. They want people that will never say anything negative. They only look at the positive and take away the negative of a thing. So basically, they want advertisers as reviewers. That's what this email basically said. Now, I'm not going to be calling names. They keep talking about Brian Del Rizzo. I don't know this guy. I've never talked to him, so I can't speak to any of that. But whoever it is that wrote up this email clearly is not an objective person, which is fine. As a company representative, you want your company to be presented in the best positive light. However, Nvidia has just owned themselves by tarnishing any positive coverage of their GPUs from anybody from here on out. And this is a real shame because there are positive features that need to be talked about. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a DLSS video here in the not too distant future. A lot of people are probably going to call me a shill. That's not the reason why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I find it interesting that a $200 card that I bought not too long ago is able to run 4K games, modern games at 4K, using the DLSS technology. And to me, that is very impressive. Now, as I've said, I don't believe DLSS is going to be the standard. It's locked down to just Nvidia. Somebody else will come up with an open standard version of this that will be, what's used long term. But for right now, here today, this is a proof of concept to show that this technology does work. And I'm excited to do that. But at the same time, now I'm thinking, do I really want to show Nvidia in a positive light? I have no relationship with them, but with the tactics that they're putting on these reviewers, I don't even want to talk about Nvidia at all anymore, personally, just because I don't want them to be successful anymore. The problem is they do have good technology and they do have good products. They're just such a crap company as far as marketing goes and as far as just being human beings and understanding how things work. They just don't care. It's their way or the highway, and I don't like that sort of bully tactic. I think it's a disservice to you guys not to tell you what all your options are, so I am going to continue with the video. I have the hardware, I have the games, and honestly, I do like the vision of the future using DLSS. Like I said, I don't think ray tracing is going to really be a thing. I really don't. Digital Foundry themselves, the kings of ray tracing, as it were, the people that like motion blur and turn on all the effects, even though most of you guys turn most of that crap off anyway, they turn them all on. Even they, in their optimized ray tracing settings video, they disabled all the ray tracing besides lighting at medium. Even they recommended turning all of it off. So to me, ray tracing, we're just not there. So them slamming Steve over basically saying the same thing that even somebody, a company like Digital Foundry, which is all in on ray tracing, I don't get it. Now, the real irony is about 2 weeks ago, I did this video right here, and without any of this stuff going on, I basically talked about the situation we now find ourselves in. We find ourselves in a situation where who can you really trust in this environment anymore? Because of the tactics of Nvidia that we now know, we now have definitive proof that this is being done on their side. Can we really trust people out there that do produce positive content for Nvidia? And this is something that Linus and Jay and everybody, all of the mainstream reviewers out there, they're very concerned about this because essentially Nvidia is the one who drew the line in the sand. And they didn't really need to. There was no reason for that. For the most part, they were getting positive coverage by most of the media anyway, and the few negatives that they got were warranted. I mean, I haven't seen anybody be unfair to Nvidia. I've seen people be overly optimistic or overly positive, but I haven't seen anybody actually being overly negative. Nvidia drew the line in the sand to where nowadays being overly negative to Nvidia might be beneficial for the reviewers out there. And this is also going to slant things in an awkward direction, especially if the reviewers feel like they have to curb their enthusiasm on things that they like just to give you what they think you're going to find as an objective opinion. And the whole thing is just going to be skewed. The balance of the entire review industry is now skewed. And really, the only two ways things would go if Nvidia went ahead and kept Hardware Unboxed banned and stuck to their guns here, they would have literally been saying, you're an Nvidia review channel, and then everybody else is an AMD or an Intel review channel, and there would just be a stark divide, and essentially you'd just be getting straight up commercials. I've been saying this for years. I believe that that is the ultimate goal that both AMD and Nvidia really do want. They basically just want infomercials. They don't really want objective reviews and objective opinions out there. However, the community has stepped up. You guys stepped up. The reviewers out there stepped up. Linus, Jay, Steve from GN, Paul from Not an Apple Fan, myself. We all banded together, and I'm sure there's many more, but those are just the ones that I'm fully aware of. We all kind of said, no, Nvidia, this isn't right. But your reaction to that content, I know Jay's video last time I checked was like at 1.2 million. Mine's at about 40,000. And for my channel, that's pretty good. That's about double the average. So you guys really are engaging in that content. And I believe it's because of you. That's the reason why Hardware Unboxed will now be getting review samples again. And they're able to keep doing their objective content. So yeah, we won, guys. We won again. We took down GPP and we've taken down Nvidia here again. It's kind of like Nvidia trying to make all this proprietary technology like physics and all that kind of stuff and GameWorks and all that stuff that they've been trying to do over the years. And every time it fails, same thing when they push too far, they go too far, pressuring review outlets and trying to take over the industry. You guys push back against it. And realistically, you guys are the last line of defense at this point. Luckily, like I said, a lot of the review outlets did step up. To me, the worrying part is the review outlets that did not step up and stand against this. Those that were not vocal against this, that does kind of paint a very interesting picture of where they might stand. Perhaps they weren't informed on the situation. Maybe, they don't know who Steve is, so they just said, we're going to stay out of it. Maybe they were all busy with Cyberpunk. I mean, there was a lot going on this weekend, but still, it does leave that kind of question in your mind. It's like, well, where were you on this? What is your stance on this? And I think actually for every reviewer out there, commenting on this situation will at the very least let us as the viewing community know that you stand here or you stand here, because Nvidia did draw that line. Luckily, most people, we know where they are. They're not going to put up with this. You're not going to put up with this, and everything's good on that front. And the last thing I want to talk about is actually the reaction that I heard from Steve and Linus. Or not Steve and Linus, Jay and Linus. Both of them basically described how their relationships work with these companies. And it actually sounds miserable having to deal with these guys because they constantly harass them. It's like, hey, we didn't like this in this video, and we didn't like this in that video. Man, I mean, honestly, I'm not aware of that because from day one, I understood that I did not want to really be working with these companies that much. Occasionally, I might want to do like a project with one here and there, but honestly, on a day-to-day basis, I just don't want to deal with them. I don't even like talking to anybody that doesn't live inside my house all that often. I talk to you guys more than I do my own family. That's just me. I'm just kind of a recluse kind of guy. But just the way that these guys are like nitpicked day after day after day, it takes a very special kind of, person, thick skin and all that kind of stuff to just constantly take this bombardment of, hey, we didn't really like this. It's like being micromanaged at your own company that these people have nothing to do with. It's almost like they, and by they, I mean like Intel, AMD, any company that you're working in some sort of collaboration with, they almost become micromanagers from the sound of things. And that's actually one of the reasons why I stopped working at other places. Even when I became the manager, I still had somebody above me. I didn't run the whole company, so there's always somebody above me, and they just start nitpicking at you over things that they know nothing about. And that's just annoying. That's one of the reasons why I very much enjoyed doing this, is that I don't have that going on anymore. The only people that'll nitpick me and micromanage me is you guys, and honestly, you guys are the ones that I'm trying to make content for, so you guys have every right to do so. And especially the patrons who help support the channel, yeah, I take your opinions very seriously. But yeah, if Nvidia doesn't like something, or AMD or Intel or any of these guys, MSI, Gigabyte, sounds like these reviewers, they just get hounded with just stupid questions and micromanagement. So I want to thank all of them that do put up with that kind of nonsense. But to me, it almost sounds like we're at the point where it's almost worth just not dealing with them. Cutting the companies off entirely might just make your life easier, because then you don't have to deal with these idiots. Their opinions no longer matter. Their thoughts, their wants, their dreams have no effect and no bearing on you. The problem here is obviously you wouldn't be able to get day one content out. But if enough of you guys pulled away, there might be a way to actually make that feasible in this market. So that might be something you guys might want to look into, is banding together, almost like a union, like unionize. And, if one of you guys gets shunned or something like that, somebody goes after one of you, you all stick together and stand up, just like we did with Steve here. And To me, that might make things better where the companies are completely separated from the review process entirely. Or better yet, what you guys could do is once you form a group, set some sort of standards, go, this is how we're going to do things, and they have no say. Literally, you have set standards that you post to the public so everybody knows what's going on. So everybody's using the same test bench, everybody's using the same games, same test suite, that kind of stuff. Very standardized testing methodology. And then this way it's as objective and transparent as possible. So if anybody does want to try to influence, so like if AMD wants you to run a specific game, you go, it's not on the list. Too bad. It's just the way it is. Or Nvidia, they want you to use certain settings and you go, well, it's not on the list. Too bad. And then if literally nobody did that anymore, basically they'll be subject to your terms is basically where I'm going with this. They can't tell you what to do. You're basically saying this is what's going to happen, like it or walk on. And that might be the best way to go for the industry. This has been floated around for a while. Doesn't sound like that's going to be gaining any traction, but realistically, let's say 2 or 3 years from now, this starts happening more and more and more and more, where these companies just keep bullying you guys. You have to stick together or they're going to rip you apart because you are an industry. You're not just individuals. You're all part of one industry that millions and millions of people put their trust and faith in. And if you guys can stand united now, I don't see why you don't just do that always. Even though maybe you don't like each other, you don't talk to each other that much, the fact that you guys are all together, if one of you gets hurt, all of you will band together like we just did. This will let companies know not to try this. So that's my plea to the industry as a whole. I will stand with anybody who's being unfairly put upon by any billion-dollar corporation. I will always stand with the individual, the little guys out there. And yeah, even Linus compared to something like Nvidia. Linus is doing pretty good for himself over there, but he's a little guy. He's a very tiny, insignificant fish next to Nvidia, AMD, and Intel. So if they really wanted to, they could cause some problems for him. He could also cause problems for everybody else. But he's also the largest of the tech tubers. Everybody below him is basically disposable at this point. If you guys conglomerate together, then you guys have a lot more power and you guys can keep your independence. It's just my thought. I'm really interested to hear what my community thinks. Do you guys think that that's the right way to go? Do you believe these guys should stick together, kind of stand as one, have some sort of baseline, like I said, some testing methodology standards that everybody sticks to? You guys and myself and everybody else will be informed of this so we know what information we're getting. And then essentially the main differences we'll be looking between each reviewer is basically their thoughts and opinions, not so much the data. Essentially, the data should be basically the same across the board between reviewers. And then, follow-up content, you can do other stuff. Like if you want to test older games, you want to test, ray tracing on like a 2060 at 4K, just for the hell of it. But the mainline reviews, if they're all kind of have the same baseline, same numbers, essentially we're just looking at different opinions on those numbers at that point, which is the subjective part of the review. Anytime somebody's talking, that's the subjective part because you're getting their opinion. The data itself is the objective fact, even though they can be tweaked to show a specific narrative, as I mentioned in previous videos. But if everybody tests the same and all the data is the same, obviously, then it's just subjective opinion thereafter. Now, ironically enough, if you get different data, everybody has the same test bench, same testing methodology, same games, same everything. And if you start seeing variation, that could actually bring up even a bigger conversation. Perhaps there's an issue with the cards or the drivers or things of that nature. So this would actually be more beneficial to the manufacturers, Nvidia, AMD, Intel, any of these guys, because it would actually streamline the process because you have more of a controlled environment. But I think that would be win-win-win overall or something to that effect. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section. What do you guys think on the whole situation? Are you happy Steve's going to continue doing his thing? He always was, but at the very least, you can still get that day one content from Hardware Unboxed. How do you guys feel? Do you think these guys should stick together? Should they have set standards? So this way we don't have as much variation and take as much subjectivity out of the whole review process as possible. Interested to hear your thoughts on all of this. If you like these kind of videos, please smash that like button. Please subscribe. Please share with friends. That really does help me out. Smaller channels like mine, you guys are the engine that drives everything. So liking, sharing, subscribing is the biggest and easiest way to do that. But you can also become a patron over on Patreon or use the PayPal link in the description below. That really helps out. That helps me get stuff on hand so I can basically back up these big guys by doing my own independent testing. So I thank you all for your support. That's really all I have for you here today. And I will catch you guys in the next video.